Hello, Sinfonia Toronto's next concert is Mozart and Janacek. We have a third composer as well on this program, Joseph Bologne, also known as Chevalier Saint-Georges. We begin the concert with Mozart's E-flat major concerto, the 21st concerto. He has written two piano concertos in this key. Earlier one is his ninth concerto, and this one is his 21st, and it's an absolutely beautiful concerto, and there are some parallels between the earlier E-flat major concerto and this one. The first movement begins with a almost fanfare-like introduction, and then after after fairly substantial introduction, piano comes in, and the interplay between the soloist and the orchestra is not a whole lot in this first movement, but tremendous amount of interplay in the second and the third movements. The heart of the concerto is really the second movement. It begins with strings introducing this melancholic melody, and piano continues on the same lines, but then there is a surprise. And suddenly, the orchestra comes into a, a bit more brighter, um, a brighter major key, where there is an interaction between the orchestra, almost ignoring the pianist, and then piano comes back again, with going back to the melancholy theme, and eventually the movement ends as it began. But it is a absolutely gorgeous movement and my favorite movement in this concerto. The third movement, we have dance-like figure and a happier movement, but even here Mozart has few surprises for us. There will be a slow introduction, there will be a slow section in the middle of the third movement, and we have a bit of a reflective moment here, and interplay between the orchestra and the pianist, and then the piece concludes with the faster 6/8 rhythm on a happier, brighter note. Mozart must have loved this concerto because he played it, as far as we know, at least three times. It was played immediately after it was finished, composed. It was finished on December 15th, sorry, December 16th on 1785, and it was performed immediately with, and we don't know exactly what kind of a performance it was, but it probably was under rehearsed, and probably it was sight-read by the orchestra because it was performed immediately the next day after it was finished. The A week later, Mozart played it at a subscription concert. The subscription concerts with featuring his piano concertos were actually an important source of income for Mozart. Mozart lived very well in between the years of 1781 and 1785, because he was well established in Vienna, and his own subscription concerts were very popular. But it was also 1785 is almost like a bit beginning of the end for him, as he developed money problems, health problems as well, and then he would die within 6 years. He had a very short life, as we know. Um, the we follow this beautiful concerto by this interesting work by Joseph Bologne. Bologne was an extraordinary man, an extraordinary composer. He was very well known as a swordsman, and a very good one. He was a fencing champion of Europe, and his skills were such that he never hurt anybody. He never damaged anyone. And in the hundreds of games that he played as a swordsman, he only lost one. He was also a virtuoso violinist, so he had time to practice his violin as well. He made his debut as a violin soloist at the age of 24, late with today's standards, but still he was known as a brilliant performer. He was also a composer. He had heard Haydn's set of string quartets and he decided to write himself. So this is one of the string quartets that we will be playing. And it's a short piece in two movements only. A beautiful first movement and a lovely rondo section, the second movement. The last piece we have is really the Janacek's suite for strings. Janacek wrote this work in 1877 and followed it with another work for strings, another suite titled Idle, and that was in the year after, 1878. And then he would wait until 20th century because he lived in the second half as well as some of the first half of the 20th century. Um, the two string quartets that he wrote in 20th century are so different from the 1877 and 78 string works. Uh, Janacek was extraordinary. He changed in 20th century to adapt the 20th century techniques and his own language that was quite modern. The two string quartets, one is titled Kreutzer Sonata and the other one titled Intimate Letters, are remarkable works. So are the earlier 1877 and 1878 works, which are really deeply rooted in the Czech tradition of the 19th century. Smetana, Dvorak, who established this. In fact, Janacek must have been tremendously inspired by Dvorak because he conducted his works. Janacek he came from a family of musicians and he was at a young age already established musician as a conductor of a large symphony orchestra in Brno and also a choir. So very likely that after he met Dvorak, he conducted this a string serenade of Dvorak's, and that the suite that we are going to play is very much inspired by Antonin Dvorak. They had a friendship. In fact, they went around the country collecting some folk melodies. Janacek was very much interested in the Czech folk traditions, just like Dvorak was. So the suite is starts with a first movement that is so much inspired from Dvorak in many ways. Begins with a bravura opening section, and then there is this Dvorakian lyricism. The second movement is a slow movement, and it features only the upper strings of the orchestra, the first and second violins and the violas. The third movement features the entire orchestra, and here is absolute mastery. 1 minute and 10 seconds, depending to the speed we play it, this work, and to me, in just under 2 minutes, slightly over 1 minute work, Janacek creates this incredibly beautiful movement. It is like Mona Lisa's smile. Um, at times is smiling, at times is introvert. Gorgeous movement, but short. It reminds me also the minuetto section of Prokofiev's classical symphony. So if you hear both works, you'll see what I mean. Then we have a scherzo, a beautiful movement full of energy with a melodious and lyric solo middle section. And then comes the fourth movement, which is a the fifth movement, which is here the focus is on the lower strings of the orchestra. Violoncello and double bass is his preoccupation. So cellos and contrabass introduce this slow, reflective melody, and then violins come in, violins and viola come in, and then we have again cello and contrabass almost finish the movement. The last movement, the sixth movement, is another little jewel. Starts with passionate introduction and keeps this to the very last chord of the movement. Here we have tremendous dialogues between the lower strings and the upper strings, and passionate arguments, and it's a fantastic moment. I like this work very much, which is an early work by Janacek. So I hope you enjoy the live stream, and it will be available online for 4 more weeks. So the date of the live stream is January 21, and it will be available all the way until February 20th. Thank you, and more details at sinfoniatoronto.com.